beautiful souls. Welcome to my podcast, A Soul's Journey with Mary. I'm so delighted to be the channel, to be the bridge, and to be the healing modality for you today. Today, I would like to share a story that comes from my heart. A story that perhaps would touch a lot of women's hearts, and a story that most of us hide it really well and really tuck it deep underneath our heart, and we don't share it because perhaps we feel ashamed, perhaps we don't feel comfortable, and also perhaps because it's painful. As I shared with you briefly in my first podcast, that my spiritual awakening came through my relationship, and most of my lessons in this lifetime have been through relationships and my personal relationship. I had to really master my own self, my own emotions, my own mind, my body, and my spirit to truly understand my life, my journey, the healing, and ultimately truly, really honing into my power as a human being, as a woman, as what God has given me, because we all have powers. We can tap into our sovereignty, the true essence of how God created you, or higher powers, or the universe, or whatever you believe in. I do want to mention that my podcast and anything I produce is not about religion, and I'm not here to kind of talk about religion, either persuade somebody. I'm just here to offer healing and be the bridge, the healing medium for a lot of women who finds it in their heart that this resonates, this message to them. So the story I want to share, that a few years ago, I would say 4 years ago, my husband started telling me that I am not as open in the relationship with him, meaning open that my heart is not really open. He felt something was missing. Although from my perspective, I felt like nothing was missing because as a mindset coach, I was trained by Tony Robbins. I worked for Tom Ferry for so many years. I worked in real estate sales. So my mentality always was about growing and improving. And so in my mind, I felt like I've worked in my relationship so much and I was in a good place. That was my perspective, my window. But my husband was feeling something that was missing, that was lacking. And I often thought when he would say this here or there casually, it's like, what is he talking about? But truly, he felt something because he's also an intuitive being, and he's very open with his love. He's very honest with his love, and his heart is very open towards me. And so when he would say that, I would, because it would touch something that resonated with some truth, but because it didn't sit well with me, it almost made me upset as why he's saying that, because deep down it did have some truth about that, but I wasn't ready to face it. I wasn't ready to admit to it. When you're not ready, you're not ready. No one can force you. It takes time. It takes your soul the time to travel until you're ready for some change. No one can force you to change unless you are ready to change. So at that time, and I've always had mentors, coaches myself as well, because I said I really truly believed in improving. So the lady that was working with me with my own personal growth, she confirmed the same thing, that yes, there's something there that I'm not truly open. And as a woman growing up in Afghanistan with sexuality, being open with your sexuality, it's something that you are not brought up with. It's something that is looked down upon. It's something that it's ashamed if you are open about it. Although I left Afghanistan when I was 16 years old and spent the rest of my life in America, but it really doesn't matter where you spend your time after your foundation is built, because my foundation was built in Afghanistan, and the mentality around being open with love and sexuality is not something you're brought up with. So that part of me was, was not so open. And my husband, he's from Afghanistan too, but he left Afghanistan when he was 8. So most of his foundation was built in America. And his personality is also, he's open, he's a risk taker, he's open, his heart is open. Anyhow, when I start doing the inner work, the spiritual work, the inner work, the healing work, I start to discover the unfolding process started, that where I was hurt, where I was traumatized, and emotions of sexuality and being open about that. So for me, when I was 3 years old, I was, I have to take a deep breath, because, when you have trauma, there's always that part of you that that doesn't feel good when you talk about it. But when I was 3 years old, I was, I don't know how to say this, I was sexually um, molested by somebody in the family. And whether you call it, I was inappropriately touched. I don't know what the terminology is exactly. But when I was doing the inner work, that part of me showed up. Like on the surface, it was a memory that I exactly remembered what happened. Now, for most of you that are listening, you may not have memories going back that far, unless if you do, because then you do, right? But if you are a spiritual healer, if you are a light worker, a way shower, depending on your soul and the journey, most of the stuff is going to come on the surface for you, as far as back childbirth, as far as back when you were in your mother's womb. And then you go back beyond, beyond that, far back, other lifetimes, or some people might call it past life, but we call it parallel lifetimes, to heal from unresolved, unprocessed trauma. Now, if you're not a light worker, a healer, a way shower, then you may just have certain memories that are very traumatic for you, that is going to show up for you, whatever that means for you. Now, for me, it started, that was the beginning, when I was 3 years old. And I could feel the feeling at that time when that happened to me. As a 3-year-old, you might think, oh, we don't know much, but oh, your emotions, your soul, your mind, we know everything. We may not be able to express it, but we go through everything. We understand it at a deep level. So this part of me that my body would clench, my body would like constrict itself, because I was violated, it it was a trauma, right? So it would show up in my relationship, and it would show up when I'm with my husband, and he felt that. I didn't know it because it had to be that time for me to be ready and face it. Where before I kept denying it, right? I had no clue what he was talking about. But when it was time, then that feeling was like, oh, this is what I do when I'm in bed with him. This is what I do when I'm not so open to open myself up because I'm afraid to get hurt. And your mind knows it, your emotions, and then as a result of that, your body reacts towards those. So that was just, that was just one time. It happened other times too when I think I was 7 years old or 10 years old, somebody touching me inappropriately. For some of you that are from Afghanistan, if you've had experiences as a woman, you know what that's like, that when you're out and about in public, you are constantly afraid someone's going to touch you inappropriately, inside the bus, right? There's like so crowded and all these guys are around you and they're just like shoving and pushing, and then they're shoving and pushing something else as well too, because I remember I was like 10 years old and I was so afraid of all these guys, and these guys are just looking at you, you know. Anyways, it kind of brings a lot of stress when I talk about these things. But I'm sure some of you have had these experiences. And, when sometimes we're sitting in a gathering with my siblings, with my cousins or friends, and people share these intimate moments that something happened to each one of them. The neighbor, the uncle, unfortunately, in some cases, the father, you know, the classmate, somebody did something. And obviously, this exists everywhere in all different cultures. I'm not saying it only exists in our culture, but it's a little bit more because there's so much restriction in Afghan culture, because you can't do this, you can't do that. So much restriction creates imbalances. And then so it goes to the far end of those balances, right? So you lose the balance and you will do stuff that will make up for the stuff that you couldn't do as a man or woman. So I do want to make sure that I communicate this properly. I am not here to blame. I am not here to point fingers. I'm not here to talk negative about anyone or culture. I'm here to speak of the truth. Simply speak the truth and give courage to women to speak up about their truth. Because if we don't, no healing happens behind the curtains. You don't have to come out publicly like I'm talking. You don't have to do that. But maybe with a friend, with a mom, with an auntie, with a therapist, with a best friend, and the best therapeutic way to heal is journaling. Start journaling about your experiences, what happened to you. And if we don't heal, we truly cannot tap into our sovereignty, our powers, the essence of who we are as a woman. And today, Earth is healing with all of us because Mother Gaia is divine feminine energy, and we're part of that, and we're part of God's creation, and we're all healing together because it has this ripple effect. You heal, your daughter is going to heal, and your mom is going to heal, your grandmother is going to heal. Talking about ancestral trauma, right? This is where when you heal, 7 generations above you and after you will heal. because it's the divine timing that healing is here for us, that we have access to truly, truly tap into that. And you could just be listening to a song, and that could be have the healing properties inside your emotions in your body. You could meditate, you could pray, you could, start opening up about your emotions. Ideally, it's all about sharing your voice, because our voices as a woman have been shut down for eons and eons. And part of that, because we were shut down so much in our society, this is why there's so many imbalances in the world. This is why it needs to come into balance, because it's such a male dominant society we live in. It's the time for us to bring balance by speaking our truth, by healing, and ultimately truly embracing like motherhood, daughterhood, being someone's partner. Because ideally, everything falls apart, breaks down because we're not healed. When you're healed, it's just everything is put back into order, into place. So today I wanted to share this story with you, that the process for me wasn't easy. And remember, it doesn't have to be so difficult for you. Everyone's soul is so different, and why you came here, what the mission is, what the purpose is for your soul, what lessons to learn. So it for me, because I'm a healer, I'm a light worker, it had to be a lot more intense. I had to really crystallize everything inside of me. Like I have to look through inside of me, it has to be so clear, like a crystal clear. Because if I don't have the capacity to be the medium, the bridge for healing, because energy comes through me. And when it does, you have to be, your energy points have to be clear in order for you to carry those frequencies for other people. So for you, it may not have to be that intense, but all you could do is just simply start journaling, start writing. I start reading this book. I can't remember the name of it. I hope maybe I'll mention it in the podcast. I'll put a tag. This book my sister recommended to start reading, and then once I start reading, it really, really helped me to start my writing abilities. And just 3 pages a day, 3 pages a day. But if you can't start with 3 pages, you can start with 1 page a day, a few times a week. It's just start writing, free writing. And then eventually the power of that writing comes through, and then you start to write stories, you start to write amazing things. I don't know, whatever powers you have, maybe you'll tap into poetry, or writing a novel, writing a book, starting a podcast, starting a group, a women's group that you can heal and help them, whatever that might be. Because the sky is the limit for you. All you have to do is just start the writing process, and that's how you can start the healing journey. Well, I think this is what I wanted to share with you today. Um, as you might feel in my voice, it wasn't that easy to share that, because first of all, I'm being vulnerable. I'm just opening up my life. And second of all, that trauma, that's still, it's there somewhere, not that intense, but I just feel it in my voice when I talk about it. But I have to tell you, today, my relationship with my husband is nothing that I had never imagined that life and relationships could get to a level like this, where you have true unconditional love, where you accept each other for no matter what. And I'm not saying this to brag upon my relationship, but I'm saying this, that an emotional state in your mind, in your body, does exist where you truly become whole, become at peace, you're in harmony, and you're just okay with everything. And all of your concerns are dissolved, transmuted, and you're no longer seeking. You just start to live being. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast today. I welcome comments, feedback, and until next one, please live your journey with your truth and with your voice. I'm Mary Nawabi. Till next time. Remember that your soul is a sacred sanctuary, your heart a profound wisdom keeper, and your journey a divine unfolding.